I'm Patty Parsons, and welcome to That's My Story. So we're in the year 2022, and this is my first show, although it is That's My Story's second show, and I'm so excited to talk with my first guest of the year, Shannon Tymosko. And I think I said that wrong. I apologize. But what I'd like to tell you is I'm talking with someone who is in the skilled trades. She's a motivational speaker. She's an ambassador for the skilled trades, mental and health. She is part of a sisterhood. And I just want to welcome you, Shannon, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Well,
welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's such an honor. And, although we're, separate and afar, it's nice to connect with people, especially from my hometown, Georgina. So it's very nice to be here.
And I love that because that sort of is our connection. So, I'm always on the hunt for people and their stories. And so it came sort of through this, Facebook. I don't normally use social platforms that much, but I saw something about in Connecting in Georgina, Industry Person of the Year. And immediately my brain goes, what's that? What is that all about? What does that mean? And so then I started reaching out to you and I'm like, oh my God, this is a woman that has this kind of cool journey. And it started with sort of, that you're Industry Person of the Year, but you originally were from Georgina. Is that correct? What you just said, right?
That's right. Shannon Tymosko, born and raised Keswick. So I, went to Lakeside Public School, Keswick High School, spent my 18 years there before I, like everybody else, moved on to college and university, the next kind of journey.
And you sort of moved on, but you had family here, and so that's nice. And apparently, I remember when part of our conversation, you said you lived in a community where your family was like right across the street from you. Some of your family.
Yeah. Funny enough, I like to compare my life to like this. If you've ever seen the TV show Everybody Loves Raymond, the in-laws are right across the street, and that was my exact childhood. So my father's parents, were right across the street. So for any married woman out there, there's that different. That's a special dynamic to have your mother-in-law so close. But it was really special for me because I got to spend great moments with my grandparents. I remember my grandfather taking me in the wheelbarrow. We used to meet every Wednesday to take out the garbage. That was kind of like our thing. But and I was very lucky because if you know Keswick, it's right on the lake. So I got to do different things: fishing, boating, swimming, these kinds of things. And so I was very fortunate. Keswick does have so many nice things to offer. And so that was kind of my childhood. And some of my family's still there. My mom's still there. I have an uncle, aunt, and some cousins that live there. And so, I still go back and once in a while see them too.
Well, okay, you just became an ambassador for Keswick. Like, so that kind of works. And we do, I think, to your point, we do have a beautiful lake and there's a lot of outdoor activities. And it seems like you made good use of those outdoor activities. And it seems like you do like the outdoors from what I can tell. And you like that physical aspect of life as well, from what I can tell. So you actually, we talked, and I think, you went to Keswick High. And one of the things that we actually talked about was that there was no skilled trades in Keswick High, so you didn't come to know about the skilled trades from high school at all. From our conversation,
yeah, I was kind of, if you know anything about Keswick High School is still relatively new when it comes to high schools, and so when I started, it was actually just rolling out. I believe I was the third year of Keswick High School being open. So at the time, we only had grade 9. 10s and 11s. And so, you can imagine the departments were not, established. They weren't, go to Sutton High and, they had crazy trades departments, but in Keswick, unfortunately, and I don't know where they are now, it's been quite some time.
Neither do I.
There was a couple introductory courses. I took them, intro to woodworking, and it just kind of gave you the opportunity. But Keswick is a skilled trades kind of small community, and so I think it would be really beneficial for that kind of really established trades department in either of the high schools, because I know the Catholic one as well is there.
Yeah. And, something that really, as we're talking about this, one thing is, I make assumptions and often my assumptions are wrong. And I realized I really didn't know how one would define skilled trade. So obviously I went and looked at it. But for people that are watching, how would you explain the skilled trades to people if they don't have an understanding of it?
The skilled trades is a physical demanding job, of course, but there's over 100, I think it is 40 different skilled trades. And so for me, I'm an electrical. The sad thing for me is people often ask me, why did you pick electrical? And because I think they expect an exciting answer. But for me, the answer is pretty disappointing. It was because of lack of education. So skilled trades it's such a big industry, and there's so many places you can go. It's just sadly underrepresented to our young people, and we kind of just go into the natural path of college and university. People like myself, it wasn't until my almost 30s that I decided to change and consider the skilled trades as something viable and reason, like for me.
Yeah, because when I was looking, and when you say that, when I noticed was skilled trades encompassed, and I really didn't think about this: construction, automotive, manufacturing, and then there was a fourth, which I can't really say, but I sort of was like, okay, I really don't have an understanding of skilled trades. And then I don't understand, where do people go and get this schooling? Is it on the job? Do you go to school? So, we talked about, that you went to Keswick High, and then you went on to do college, but it wasn't anything necessarily to do with the skilled trades. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your educational background, or what you did after high school?
Well, immediately after high school, I did sign up for college and university. The original thing I applied for was accounting. I really excelled at business classes, and math in high school. So I applied for accounting. It was very, quickly in that I discovered this was not for me. And I applied for, something that I was a little bit more passionate about, which was child and youth work. This was a 3-year diploma. I finished the diploma, graduated, and started working at a shelter for homeless youth in Etobicoke named Youth Without Shelter. One of my favorite jobs. And I worked in so many different departments. I worked in the housing department, getting youth, off the streets and into permanent housing. I worked, doing just cooking. This is where this is their home. So to make meals for them and to feed them is actually a very rewarding job. Just
Sure.
to, frontline staff. Sadly, being a child and youth worker is not one of those jobs that pays very well. And I found myself, when looking for alternative jobs in that industry, there's just so much competition. I was competing with PSWs, SSWs, psychiatry major, EAs, TA, people with years of industry experience. And I realized this is just, there's so much competition for these minimum wage jobs, and I had to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
I was working at a place called Cash Money, if anybody's familiar with that. They're a payday loan company, and that's what I worked at during college, and it kind of just naturally turned into my full-time job. And I worked at payday loans for almost a decade, 9 years, and sadly, 28, 29 years of age, I'm only making $40,000 a year, which is really hard to do in the GTA. And I just slowly went into debt and had to reconsider some options.
Yeah, because $40,000 is not going to buy you a house. I don't even know how you have a car. And yet you've worked really hard, so you've got some really hardcore skills, but 40,000 is not going to help you thrive, let alone survive. So I can see where you might want to go, wait, I'm just paddling water, basically. So then you must have had a new thought process going on,
Well, and, I think it was probably a really hard time in my life. I think back now, and I'm one of those people who now thinks everything happens for a reason. I can see, why everything was where, why I needed to go through that experience. But sometimes when you're in it, you don't really know.
See it. Yeah, oh, yeah.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. The child and youth work thing, wasn't something that I could really thrive on again. Working through payday loans wasn't for me. And so I started to look at alternative options. It is because of my child and youth work that I, had the skills to research and look into. And so I'm applying for jobs. I'm looking into different things. And my best friend, Matthew, he bought a house at the time. And he he wanted to rip out the kitchen day 2. And I thought, you're a little nuts, because my family takes some time to do some renovations. And he got right in there, and day 2 ripped out the kitchen. That turned into the kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and us finishing an entire basement. And so it was in this experience I learned I love working with my hands. I'm like, I could do this for 8 hours. And I know that they get paid reasonable. I didn't ever not know that part. I just never thought it was a job for me. And so I researched, and I came across some programs. And one of the programs I came across was in Hamilton. It was a pre-apprenticeship program for machining, actually. I had no idea what a machinist was, but I knew that I needed some industry experience on my resume, anything. And so I applied, and I got in, and it was a 26-week program, so quite a commitment. And I found out what a machinist was. So for everybody who's like, what's a machinist?
Yeah, tell me what a machinist is.
A machinist is like somebody who takes metal and puts it through a machine. Now there's tons of machinists work with drill press, lathes. A lot of them are now CNC, so like computer operated machines, but there's so many different machines that a machinist could work with, and these are big machines. And so they take a piece of metal, run it through a machine that's very basic, and then they get a product or a result. And the thing is, I really found joy in this, even though I didn't know it. But when I was younger, my mom, taught me how to sew. And I like to compare machining, again, for women. They're like, is this a job for me? Well, if you like to sew, a sewer takes a piece of material, runs it through a machine, and you get a result. And you do that if someone does that as a hobby, because they get reward from that, imagine doing that as a job every day, and the sense of pride that I got, finishing these little projects that were assigned with me were wonderful. And so I really realized that, the skilled trades does wonders to building my confidence, my self-esteem, not to mention contributes to my physical health, my mental health. All of these things started, I started to realize that. Sadly, machining did not turn into a long-term thing. I applied for several jobs, and I understand machining's a little bit different than electrical.
Well, okay. Now, Shannon, we are going to pick this up because I am very interested to see where we go from next. So we are going to be going to a break, and we are going to be back with Shannon in a minute. So stay tuned, and thank you very much. Welcome back to That's My Story, and I'm sitting here with Shannon, who is a member of IBEW Local 105, and we were talking about machinist. I think that's where we left off, and Shannon, you kindly equated it for a lot of us to it equals having material, running the material through a process, and ending up with a product. So good question for you as a machinist. What was the first thing that you actually had as a tangible product? Do you remember what that product was, or what it was you made?
It's funny because a lot of the times they're like parts for machines.
Okay.
And so I remember working at DeFasco, and one of my favorite things were welding wheels. And so, what is a welding wheel for? I'm not sure. Somewhere in the plant goes these welding wheels. So it's nice to know that you contribute to a bigger kind of picture, and those really rewarding ones where they bring you the broken part and no print, and you have to try to make it. And it's really rewarding knowing that, you helped fix that machine.
Oh, that is so cool, because you're part of the bigger picture. You're the spoke in the wheel, but without you, that's not going to get done. So that's a really cool way to look at it. Okay, that's cool. But now
that's with all skilled trades. You were the, we have the structure of the building, we put the wires in the building. If you actually look at what skilled trades workers bring to you on a daily basis, they bring you water as you shower, they help you brush your teeth, they cook you food, and the list goes on of why you need skilled trade workers.
You know what? I don't think, certainly I know I haven't really thought about it. And it's not part of my consciousness. And in fact, you brought it to my consciousness. So my when I'm on Microsoft Edge, I've got thousands of things open now about the skilled trades, because what I realized was I was fascinated by it. And probably had I known about it when I wasn't 70, I might have found myself being very interested in it, but it wasn't even offered at any level, anywhere that I would have known about it. And I find that very interesting. So that at 70, I don't know that I've got the physical, but I'm strong. So I'm sure I could lift. I'm sure I could lift things, carry things, port things, but not about me, machinist. So did you intend to get a job as a machinist? If you're an apprentice, are you being paid as a machinist? What happens there?
Well, so I guess the confusion is, how do you become a tradesperson? We keep saying a tradesperson, but that's very vague. So your end goal is a journeyman. That's the ticket. That's the title. So let's compare, a journeyman to a teacher, or let's compare a journeyman to a doctor. In both those circumstances, they kind of have students. The doctor has like a resident, and the teacher has students, they're teaching. And so the journeyman apprenticeship process, it's a teacher-student process. And the nice thing about when you go down the skilled trades is you get paid to learn, you get paid to work. So typically you go to college and university in Ontario and you get an Ontario student loan, or you're so fortunate your parents, saved money and you don't have that. Or you worked really hard so that you can pay for your own schooling, because that's also true. Let's not forget about those people out there too. But that's the typical route. When you choose the skilled trades, you get sponsored by an employer. They take you on as an apprentice, and you start a journey. That's why they call it journeyman. And over that journey, right? And over that journey, you complete a set amount of hours. So for electrical, that's 5,000 hours. Sounds pretty daunting, but that's just about 5 years. And that's comparable to a 4-year university degree, but I just got paid for the last 5 years. You paid someone else to learn, right? Very different experience. So you come out much more, not in debt, because you've been being paid along the entire experience. Now, the very big misperception or confusion about the skilled trades is we don't go to school, or it's for the uneducated, or whatever that you might think. But skilled trades workers have to go to school. There is a very important theory behind electrical. We keep people safe every day. Like that's why you're not getting electrocuted. And so during our journey process, that 5 years, we take breaks and we go to trade school. For electrical, we go 3 times, and we go for a block period for about 10 weeks. And we'll learn all the theory and behind what we're doing on the job. Then we go back to work. And so it's this process of school, work, until you've completed your 3 levels of trade school and your 5,000 hours, and then you write a test, and you get your certificate of qualification. And this allows you to work throughout Canada. There's as an electrician and charge for that service.
And you get to now work anywhere because you now have that certificate, ticket. I think different people have different things, ticket, certificates. And so you're working now. You did machinist. You didn't go and do it. You did machinist, but you switched gears, right?
I did switch. I found it very hard to find a permanent position in machining. And then I understand with small businesses, machining, it's a fixed location. My resume, if you don't have one female staff, my resume is perhaps a $10,000 bathroom. So I understood the struggles, for small businesses taking on a woman.
Sure.
Does that make it right? I'm not, but I totally understand, there's different challenges versus electrical.
So now, and how was it that you actually switched into electrical? Because we've already discovered there's tons of different ways that you could do that. So where you said you had resources and you used your resources, I guess, because of when you were doing child youth work. So how did you find out about electrical? How would anybody find out about electrical?
So I did the pre-apprenticeship program, and the first one, the machining one. And the only reason I did machining at the time was it was the only one that was offered. And so the following year, after I'd spent a year, doing some, the pre-apprenticeship and trying to find a job, I was in that kind of space of no job. So when the new pre-apprenticeships came out, and one was electrical, I applied. Obviously most people know about the basic skilled trades, electrical, plumbing,
Sure.
roofing, because we see them. But the sad thing to me is, there's so many other different kind of avenues and specialties you could go down that people just don't even know about because we're not educated. We're not told about them in school, and they're not even options presented to us. And for me, I wished it was something that maybe everything's happened for a reason in my life, but I wish more young people were educated so they had it as an option, because the majority of skilled trades workers, contractors are seeing people coming in at my age, 30 years of age. So they're starting their career late. And that's typically what we're seeing. It's a second career choice for people.
Right. And that second career choice is sort of like, based on what you said, what your experience was, I'm not making any money. $40,000 is not going to cut it. I'm going to do something else. But the joy for me is that you found out that you loved it. And I think that's the excitement, that you actually found out, hey, I could be good at this. I love it. And I think you've even said, like, you need to know math. You need to know things that are going to keep you safe on the job. So like, you're not going into work as an electrician without understanding all the theory behind it, because you could kill yourself, kill somebody. So there's so many safety aspects to it. So you were willing to do the work, but it looks like you love it. Do you love it?
There's so many things that I love about the skilled trades, and some of them are really basic. I get paid pretty well. I get good benefits now, and I have a pension. So these are all really great things that come along with the union, but pretty basic. On a much more deeper level, somebody who went through child and youth work, the skilled trades or construction or whatever, being physically active is so beneficial to your mental and physical health. As somebody who I'm, struggled with some mental health over my lifetime, anxiety, depression, these are quite normal for many people. When you go to the doctor, a good doctor is going to ask you if you exercise. And the majority of us sit behind a computer for 40 hours and it does nothing to benefit our health. And that was me for, my decade. This was not healthy for me. And so switching to skilled trade is one, contributed just to those little kind of, moments of, depression or anxiety in your life, because it helps to bring it back. And the other thing that is even more rewarding, and I've talked to you about it before, is, confidence is built by competence. And it's building those skills. And what I really love about the skilled trades is everything is slightly different. So every day you have to, look at a new project, and you're going to have to try something new today. And, that's where confidence is built. It's by, trying, and you're failing each time. You got to try something new, but eventually you get there and you're successful. And so confidence is built by competence. It's by trying until you're successful. And sadly, we too often get stuck behind these little machines, these androids and different things, and we forget to try. I've talked to you about my best friend before, and I'll talk about him again because he's obviously done great things for my life. But, kayaking is one of those things, that's not a job, that's a joy. And yet, for several years, my friend, we used to go canoeing. And, he said to me, oh, we got a kayak. He tried to encourage me to go. And I was like, no, I like canoeing too much. No, I'm not going to like it. I like canoeing. And I was adamant, I'm not going to like it. And finally I got in the kayak. And guess what? I will not go back to the canoe because I like the kayak better than I like the canoe. But for like 2 years, because I just assumed I like this better, I never tried. And it held me back from something I loved more. Sadly, we're kind of a society that, let other people tell us what we're going to like and dislike. So stop, get out and enjoy the world, and find your joys. Because if you can find one and turn it into a job, you're winning.
And so I think this has become part of the advocacy that you've taken on. And as I said, if you Google you, I watch so many videos and I've seen how you're advocating. And so part of the message on mental health, I think, to reiterate, is the skilled trades have brought so much to your life, because it's keeping you mentally active, physically active, and on your toes. So we've talked a little bit about your job, how you got there, advocacy, and you're very still young, And you've got, how many hours have you got left till you get your apprenticeship? You're at how many hours are you at right now? Do you mind me asking? Do you know?
I'm in the second year and I'm 8 days, just 8 days away from being a third year. So I still have, 3 more years of work plus 2 more levels of trade school as well.
And then, so what's next for you while you're doing this and you're advocating and you're doing sisterhood and you're doing all of these things? What's next for you?
Well, the nice thing about being an IBEW union worker is union work, sometimes you are laid off. And so that's what's happening right now. That's why I'm not at work at 2 p.m. or not 12. It's given me the opportunity to pursue more of my advocacy. So, along this journey, I did the child and youth work, I did some business, and it's given me kind of the platform to, be this advocate, or I don't know, just kind of share my story in hopes that other people, are inspired or maybe might consider something themselves, right? I didn't really necessarily have that at myself, throughout my life, that kind of role model. But I'm a believer, if you can see it, you can be it. And, and so I just try to put myself out there, whatever it might be. Like yesterday I met with a group of women that are all interested in, becoming electricians. So it was so nice to chat about that. And now I'm working on a children's book, because I think, like I said, it's so important we teach them young. And so I want to, let the young people consider the skilled trades and think it's something maybe for them too.
Wonderful. And you're doing that, Shannon. And I can't wait to get a children's book with your name on it so I can read it to my grandchildren. Shannon, thank you so much for being our guest on That's My Story. Thank you to all our viewers that are watching. And we'll talk to you again on That's My Story.
Thank you so much.